Hello and welcome to the Modern Music Mixing course. Today we're going to be adding energy into our mix by using automation to add in macro dynamics throughout the track. Let's get into the session. Okay, so the first place we're going to start here is the mix bus. Basically, as we automate our mix bus, we're basically bringing up the volume, bringing down the volume of every single instrument. So it's just a volume adjustment essentially. What I want us to do is take stock of where we're automating the volume. Okay, so at the start we have this intro. It sounds a little bit like this. And then we're going to come into verse 2, and you can see here we have our first little automation coming down. So this basically brings the track down and sort of softens everything up in terms of its volume as we're coming into the verse. You do have a way with me. Now it's a very subtle move. We don't want to be too aggressive right now. We're, what is it, a 1 decibel drop. So we got a very slight fade and a slightly quicker fade here to try and make that sound as transparent and as natural as possible. So for the whole verse, we're like this, and then we do a quick little pop as we're about to come into the instrumental, which sounds something like this. If you fall, I'll catch you. So a very subtle little pop of energy, just giving us that little burst as the instrumental comes back in. Then we got the fade out again as we come into the next verse. So I spoke about this in the last series, sort of the technique of how to do this type of automation. What you'll notice is, as we're about to come into something where we want more energy, we're usually doing fairly quick moves, so we get that nice little pop of energy coming out as the volume is increased very slightly. And then when we want to bring it back, we're trying to be quite subtle. So you can see here, this fade out actually bleeds a little bit into the verse itself. The verse has started there and it was still fading out, so we're trying to make it nice and transparent. Then we continue on like this, and then we get to our first chorus, and we got sort of a mixture technique here. We're doing both a ramp, and then we're doing a quick pop as we actually get into the chorus. Let's take a listen to that. When you're down, I'll lift you. I'll be there for you if you need me. One more time. When you're down, I'll lift you. I'll be there for you if you need me. So basically this first part is just a ramp, which is just going to create that anticipation, like, okay, we're coming into the chorus. And then we add the little pop here. So it's going to pop up higher and add that energy. Okay, let's finish off here on the mix bus by taking a listen to this little run of boosts here. If you fall, you'll catch me. If you fall, I'll catch you. I'll be there for you if you need. Nice little pop into that first chorus. So a ramp and pop into the second chorus. And then finally a ramp leading into the outro. And this ramp coincides with musical events. So for instance, this is ramping as you hear the snare roll. So you can hear it there, the snare roll. So that ramp kind of works musically, and that's a good thing to keep in mind. You want these moves to not just be sort of arbitrarily increasing the volume and decreasing the volume. You want them to have some musical context. So for instance, if you've got a snare roll, a little bass fill, something happening with the vocals, it's nice to pair that with these big macro moves. Okay, so from here in, we're going to get a little bit more granular. What we just did then was automate the mix bus, which is everything. Now what we're going to do is start automating individual elements of the mix to achieve a different sort of feeling from section to section. So here we are automating the bass guitar, and as we bring that in and out, the feeling that we're going to get is one of impact. So as we bring the bass guitar in, that's going to give us more of that sense of power, because it's obviously got a lot of low frequencies in there. And as we take it out, that's going to take away a little bit of that low end energy and remove some of that impact. Let's take a listen to what this sounds like. It's coming up now. So it's a few decibels dip. And it just has that effect of just calm down a little bit, like, okay, we're in the verse, we're going to calm down a little bit. And this gives us room to build back up for the instrumental, which is coming in here. Let's take in fact, we'll give ourselves 4 bars here.
If I fall, you'll catch me. If you fall, I'll catch you.
And then we're back up a decibel and a half.
I know the feeling.
And then we're softening them back up here.
You know the feeling too. It's like
I'm using the very similar technique of that pop and fade method, where we're popping on sections where we want to increase energy, and then fading when we want to bring that energy back out, just to try and keep it nice and transparent. Now this is probably one of the biggest boosts here. So you can see these are much smaller boosts. It remains at a higher level, but they're smaller. Let's take a listen to what this bigger boost sounds like. So it goes from -11 to -8.
when I'm down, you lift me back up. When you're down, I'll lift you. I'll be there for you if you need me. I'll be there just for you.
One more time.
When I'm down, you lift me back up. When you're down, I'll lift you. I'll be there for you if you need me. I'll be there just for you.
So this is the first time that the chorus actually comes in. So we kind of want it to feel like a moment, and a really good way of creating that moment is by increasing that low end energy. So as this low end comes up, it kind of feels like, okay, we've got a lot more power and a lot more impact, and we've correlated that with the moment the chorus comes in. Okay, the next thing we're going to automate here is the drum bus, so we're bringing up all of the drums together. Now this is going to have a similar effect to what the bass guitar is having, so it's going to increase impact, increase that feeling of energy, but it's also going to highlight the rhythm a little bit more, because of course the drums are quite a percussive element in the mix. They're the most percussive elements in the mix, in fact. So as we bring them up, we're highlighting rhythm more, and as we bring them down, we're easing away from that rhythm. And the moves we're making here are only 1 decibel moves, so we're bringing it from -2.5 to -3.5 here, and then coming up and down as shown here. So rather than go through all the automation on the drums, I'm guessing that you get the point now, and I'm just going to show this section here, which is the second part of the final verse, going into this little fade up on the drums, which leads us into the final choruses.
You and I will spend our days happy. You and I will have the one. If I fall, you'll catch me. If you fall, I'll catch you. I'll be there for you if you need me. I'll be there just for you.
Right, so continuing on here, we're going to take a look at the snare top. We're automating this in exactly the same way. So on instrumentals, we're up. On verses, we're coming down. On instrumentals again, we come up. And then choruses, we're coming up. Now, the snare drum's quite an important instrument in the drums because it always seems to be coming in on the strong beats, right? So by bringing up the snare drum, you're essentially highlighting those strong beats even more and further increasing that feeling of the rhythm, further highlighting the rhythm, I should say. So that's essentially what we're trying to achieve here. I'm going to show you exactly the same place, the verse just before the chorus. Let's take a listen to the effect here. The snare drum as this chorus comes in should just come a little bit more forward. So you can hear that very slight gain. It's just helping that snare drum poke ahead of the mix just a little bit more and highlighting those strong beats. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is the automation that we're doing on the piano. Now there's two different types of automation that we're doing. We're doing basic sort of macro dynamic automation where we're just trying to highlight certain parts of the mix in different sections. And we also have performance-based automation where something is happening at that moment and you just want to highlight the performance in the mix. So I'm not going to go over these too much because I've kind of already described why we do these types of moves. And I am going to focus on this one. But I will just say very quickly that the piano in this track is quite a sort of rhythmic sort of thing. So we're highlighting moments like this. So you can hear there, it's a very rhythmic sounding instrument. And then when we come onto the verses, it's much more just like a filler, like a sort of like a synth pad almost, right? So this is what the verses sound like. So very, very simple. Then you get into something like the instrumental, and it sounds like this. So these automation points are essentially highlighting those rhythmic moments, making sure that they're quite present in the mix during those sections, and then on like verses we're bringing it back down just to sort of fade it back into like its nice little spot there. Now the main thing I wanted to talk about is this section here, which you can see we're automating up quite a lot. So we're going from -2 all the way to 2.44, coming back down here and then coming back up, and you see we're doing a lot of different automation here. I'm going to unsolo everything, and then we'll hear why we automated like this.
It's like a white hot brush of passion, digging deep into our bones. You feel it at your fingertips, you feel it in your chest. When I'm down, you lift me back up. When you're down, I'll lift you.
Okay, so right there, the piano is playing quite a nice little melody, and it's the only time in the entire song that happens. So it's always nice to just have that little bit of something unique happen in a track. And the idea here is we want to highlight it because it is quite a dense mix in that section. You've got backing vocals, rhythm guitar, electric piano. So all of that sort of mid-range area is getting quite dense. So just making sure that it pokes its head out just enough that it catches your ear and it's not lost in the density of the mix. I'll just solo it just to really highlight what the piano is doing here. Right, that's everything that's important about the automation for this track. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.